No, the video is not in response to Matt Walsh's little documentary. I haven't watched that. I'd be interested to, but I don't want to pay money to see it, so I'm not going to. Basically, today's video is going to be a little bit longer. We're going to be talking about gender. We're going to talk about what gender is, where it kind of came from, and what are some more modern ideas of what gender is. And then we're also going to be talking about specifically what does it mean to be a woman? What does woman mean in today's world? There seems to be a lot of questions that people have about this. There seems to be a lot of confusion. I've had numerous talks on Twitter or actually in person, usually with my family, about what it means to be a woman. And of course, the English dictionary that you can pull up from Google is it's an adult human female. And this is a correct definition. This is a totally correct definition. However, there's a little bit more to it than that, and we can get into what that means, but in order to do so, we have to talk about gender and what gender is. Now, typically, we know gender to be a synonym of the word sex, but there are some ways that it actually differs than sex. For a long time, it was kind of just seen as the word that we use for sex because sex is a bad word. This is not in any way academic. This is a colloquial use of the term. We're going to be talking a lot today about language and how words work and what words do when used in different ways. So get ready for that. It's going to be a very long video, and I have asked so many people on Twitter to debate me about this because I have started shit wars where people will come to me about it, and I'll just say, hey, I have a show, you can come talk to me, and then nobody ever responds. It's amazing. It's like they just fucking, they disappear afterward. It's beautiful. But gender is a couple of things. One, kind of useless, not entirely. I won't say that gender is a completely useless thing. Two, really cool, and a few things. Three, made up by humans. You see, sex, biological sex, is a term that refers specifically to the chromosomes that somebody has. And for a long time, we didn't know that chromosomes were a thing. I don't know the exact date, but I think it was sometime in the 20th century that we identified chromosomes, specifically the X and XY chromosomes. I don't know the exact date on that. Somebody can fact check me. I won't fact check myself. I don't care. But we didn't know what those things were for a long time. So how would you tell what a man and a woman are? How could you tell that? Well, the obvious way would be look at their fucking genitals. That's easy enough. Man, woman. Pretty simple. Where things get a little bit more complicated is when you have people out there whose gender identity, the way they feel about themselves, doesn't quite align with the social norms. Now, when we ask ourselves, what is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? That's a more important question. What does it mean to be a woman? We have to also ask ourselves, well, how are we defining woman in a given society or a given culture? There are a myriad of ways of defining woman, and it really just goes down to kind of where you live. What a woman might be in, I don't know, some Scandinavian country might be totally different than some South American country. Totally different sides of the world. What a woman is there may be totally different. Now, there are a lot of crossovers and things that kind of come up naturally, and a lot of gender is informed by biology, undoubtedly. You see, way back in caveman days, it made sense for the men to go out and hunt and to have those occupations where they would fight in the wars and they would go get the food and come back home, while the women would stay and gather up the fruit and be home carers and take care of the home. I can't speak. I'm doing a bad job. This made sense biologically because men are stronger. That's right. Fuck you guys. We have bigger muscles just naturally. That's just part of being a human male. We are just naturally larger. And that's not to say that women can't be strong, of course. But that was a big factor in that. That was a huge factor in that. So why is it that these sort of outdated biological things that were applied to gender or sex back in the day, when we were worried about being eaten by bears, which I guess could still happen now, why is it that those things have somehow transcended and come into the toy aisle of your average supermarket? The reason that girls love the color pink is because we have told them through decades that is the color we associate with women. Pink. Pink is for girls. Boys get blue. There is zero biological explanation for this. It is not determined by your balls or your labia, okay? Those aren't the same thing. Ovaries, there we go. It's not determined by those things. So where did it come from? Why does that exist? I think that any conservative watching me, or somebody maybe moderate, can understand that, yeah, okay, so the color blue and pink, yeah, of course, those are made up. We made those up artificially. But things like gender and the way that I go to work and take care of my wife and the fact that I wear clothes a certain way, that's informed by my biology. I wear clothes that fit my body. Well, women can wear pants now. That wasn't exactly popular 100 years ago, nor was it probably allowed for many women by their husbands who would kind of rule them in a sense, kind of. So there are many things other than just color that go into it, right? Like clothes, the toy aisle. Toys are a very gendered thing. Boys get to play with the cool Nerf guns and the cool Legos, well, some of them. And the girls get to play with the dolls and the weird dolls that like poop and you can feed them. Really fucking creepy shit. I don't like those. Those have always creeped me out. I've always thought to myself, why on earth would anybody want a doll that just fake poops or fake pees? What is that preparing you for? Motherhood? You can never be prepared for motherhood. I promise you, it will not help you in the long run. So we have kind of artificially defined certain things in society around gender. Not just the fact that you have a penis, because any boy can go walk over to the doll aisle and play with a doll. A doll is no different than an action figure, other than it's not quite as muscly, depending on the action figure and the doll. We made this stuff up. In many ways, these arbitrary rules that we have set up for ourselves are not too different than something like this. This is not a prop. This was just here. It's just in my office. This is a chair. I have asked this question many times, and I'll use the example of my brother like I did in the last video. What is a chair? Well, scientifically. How do we define a chair scientifically? The same way that we would define a man and a woman scientifically, of course. How would you do it? How would you go about doing it? Well, you would say that a chair is something you sit on. Well, sure, I could sit on the floor. I could sit on a rock. I could sit in my bed. Well, that doesn't quite work. Well, maybe a chair is meant for, I don't know, one person. Okay, I could sleep on a twin bed. I can sit on a twin bed. Still one person. Okay, it's a seat made for one person that has a back. Okay, so is a recliner a normal chair? It's a kind of chair. It's a reclining chair, I guess. What about a bench? What about a short bench with little divider rails in between all of them? Is that a chair? Well, okay, maybe it's a seat made for one person with 4 legs and a back. Can't get much more specific than that. All right, so an office chair with no back is not a chair. This one doesn't have any legs. It has one leg that spreads out into 5 different locations. So it kind of has like 5 legs with that lead up in the middle. Is that a chair? Or is it a little different? You see, there is no way to define a chair without including something that isn't quite a chair. For example, in any of those examples I just gave, a car and a car seat. You know what a car seat is for your kids, right? The little ones, not the big ones that you put your baby in, but the little ones, the little booster seats. Is that a chair? You sit in it. It's got little armrests. Somebody has to sit in it. But then the car seat itself, meant for one person, has little arms. It doesn't have 4 legs, but is it still a chair or is it a seat? What's the difference? What do these words mean? So, like I'm saying, you can't define what a chair is because it's not a scientific thing. It's something that we came up with. We constructed it because it has a purpose in our language. You see, I can tell you what a chair is, and you can picture about a million different things in your mind. Are chairs made of wood, metal, plastic? Does the material matter? Doesn't any of this matter? The answer is no. None of it matters. Like in scientific terms, it doesn't have to be a logical thing because it isn't. There's no logical way to define a chair. Similarly, there is almost no way to logically define what it means to be a man. And that's very interesting. Or what it means to be a woman. Because it changes interpersonally. One man might say, well, being a man is being emotionally available for your wife and taking care of her needs. Another man might say, well, fuck that. I need to be strong and stoic and never show her that I cry. These are real positions that people could hold. So, why is that? Not every man is the same. Not every man has the same values. not every culture has the same definition. You see, in some societies, men are expected to do different things. Back in the day, Scottish men would wear kilts, kind of like dresses, kind of a neat thing like a skirt. Men don't do that anymore. Not a thing that men do, just not popular in society. Back in the 80s, it was much more common for young men to wear really short basketball shorts. Men don't really do that anymore, do they? Not something that we do. So what it means to be a man and the little social roles that go on with being a man change through time. I can use the dating world as an example. Back in the 50s, women didn't have a lot of opportunities in the workplace. Not until the second wave of feminism came around in the 60s, along with the civil rights movement. It was harder for a woman, much harder for a woman, to get into a position of power. Thus, pretty much as a man, your only real job was to be not an asshole all the time. You can be an asshole sometimes. And have a good job. Those are the only two things you really need to get yourself a wife, because she's not going to have many economic opportunities on her own, God no. But, well, you've got nice money and you're attractive enough. You got yourself a wife. Not that hard to do. Now, today, dating is a whole different beast. It's much more difficult. As a man, you have to be more than just a paycheck, because she doesn't need that anymore. She doesn't need your paycheck. She can go get it herself. A young woman in today's society, she's going to feel liberated because, well, she's a young woman and she feels powerful, of course, because every young person does, whether they know it or not, unless they're, like, depressed. Feels that way in a sense. They always kind of feel that arrogance about themselves a little bit. We all do it, just a little bit. It's okay. You're young. It's fine. It's okay. You'll grow up, maybe. My point is that men are expected to do a little bit more now. To be in a relationship now as a man, unless you're like old, but as a young man specifically, you have to be a little bit more emotionally available for your partner. You have to care a little bit more. You don't get to make the final decisions, maybe like your grandparents did. Back in the day, if my grandpa said, fuck it, we're doing it this way, this is the way it's getting done. We're not going to complain about it anymore. I'm making the decisions. I'm the man in the relationship. It's my fucking job. Nowadays, that doesn't work. And it shouldn't work. That's abusive, honestly. It's much more equal now. And in order to get a really cool girlfriend or a wife, men have to step up. Got to step up. So the social roles of being a man have changed in the dating world, and in many other ways that have changed. My point is to say that, again, genders, well, it's fluid. It can change. It's something that can change through time. And it does change through time. Men commonly wore suits back in the day, but now I'm wearing a button up and jeans, dude. And what are these, fake Converse or Vans? I don't know what they're called. These are Converse. I'm stupid. Vans are very different. Men are expected to be a little bit different now. So when it comes to somebody's perception of themselves in relation to society at large, gender becomes very important. The definition of gender, not the actual one that I have pulled up here, the way I think most people who are on the left would define it, which is different than the one I'm leading here. I'll give you both. Here, we'll do this. Gender, as according to the Oxford Dictionary, the male sex or the female sex, especially when considered in reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones, or one of a range of other identities that do not correspond to the established ideas of male and female. So this definition allows for the old way that we used to define gender to still exist. I define it a little bit differently, but it's the same concept, just repackaged. Gender is how someone perceives themselves, typically on a scale of masculine to feminine in any given culture. Sometimes referenced by biology or social values / roles. That definition covers the entirety of gender. Everything you need to know in gender is right there. Now, I have heard some criticism on Twitter saying that this actually undermines or is contradictory of itself. And people have said things like, I'm a sexist, and that, is a tomboy secretly trans? Do they not know they're trans? And of course the answer is this, no, a tomboy isn't trans. They could be, maybe they're struggling with that. If they are struggling with gender dysphoria, then yeah, I guess they would be. Or they could be non-binary. But more likely, if we're talking about a real tomboy, or maybe a butch woman as they are called, this is somebody whose internal perception of themselves may be informed by their biology, or they just see themselves as a woman. And that's perfectly fine, perfectly valid. Some women, their internal perception of themselves is a woman because they more align with the feminine side of our culture. There could be plenty of women out there who, what could you say, deny or disavow the feminine side of our culture and say, I don't want anything to do with that. That doesn't make you a man inherently. You could be if you are trans, but you could still have this perception of yourself that says, well, I'm a woman because I got tits and a vagina. I got pretty good titties and a good vagina. It works perfectly. But I don't like the other stuff that I'm forced to do as a woman. I don't like that I statistically am more likely to make less money. I don't like the idea of getting pregnant because I could fucking die. And I don't like how a lot of women are treated on the internet. That's a very normal, like, that's not, like, it's not contradictory of anything, right? There's no contradiction there. She still sees herself as a woman, thus she is a woman. Now, if you're a little bit clever, you might realize that this kind of all sounds arbitrary and that almost none of it matters because, well, if gender is just whatever you see yourself as, what's the point of it? Why even have gender as a concept? Well, that's a great question. One that has a few answers depending on who you ask. Some far lefty types would say, it doesn't have a point. There's no use for it. Get rid of gender. I disagree a little bit. I do think that gender has a lot of harmful outcomes, mainly things that I kind of briefly joked about in my example where the woman disavows feminine stereotypes. Women are expected to wear makeup. They're expected to look a certain way. Certainly, and same with men too. All this stuff usually applies to men. Maybe not the makeup part, but they're expected to look a certain way. They're expected to wear makeup. They're expected to do certain things around the house. And these aren't like, well, the modern woman is expected to do that. Well, yeah, a lot of women still are. Men are expected to be stoic. They're expected to not cry in front of people. They're expected to be emotionally closed, basically, in a lot of cases. And this is overall harmful. Some of these things are really harmful, especially the case for men. Hiding your emotions and closeting that stuff isn't good. Not good. I'm not saying you should cry all the time as a man. It's probably not appropriate to cry when like somebody slightly insults you. And you maybe if you have that much of a problem, you have something else going on. But you should be more emotionally available. That's something that you should work on as a man. I have no fears about crying in front of my partner. None. I don't worry about my woman seeing me as less of a man because, frankly, my girlfriend's smarter than that, and she respects me as a human. And you should respect your partner, too, as a human. They're not going to think of you that way. They want you to be emotionally available. That's like most women that I know want a man who is willing to talk with them and have real conversations with them and be emotionally available. And this works for gay relationships and lesbian relationships, too. Or non-binary relationships or trans relationships, any kind of thing like that. I guess, well, gay and lesbian trans people would just be the same as normal gay and lesbian people, wouldn't they? Whatever. I'm getting off to semantics about language. Basically, all of this is to say that gender is complex. It's kind of difficult to wrap your head around sometimes, and I totally get that. Like, I totally understand that this whole video might have been a lot for you. This might be really new information that you've never heard before. And I haven't done any reacting to anything. I'm not talking about anybody else's word. A little bit, I guess I am, talking about people who criticize me on Twitter. But I'm just giving you my take on gender. So when somebody asks me what a woman is, I can answer it very easily. Very easily. It doesn't take any effort for me to answer that question. I think the problem with conservatives and your guys' kind of side of the aisle out there is that you don't understand it. So you kind of want to ban it, whether it be for minors or for adults and minors. That is some conservative positions. And I think that the way I can kind of relate this to you and the way that I can kind of get through your head about this, if everything before this hasn't done it, think about how a lot of liberals view guns, or specifically assault rifles. A lot of them don't even know what they're talking about. To be fair, there are a lot of mass shootings that happen in this country, and I don't pretend to know the solution to that because I don't. I don't know. And you might say that maybe banning assault rifles is a solution. I don't think that it personally is. I think that bad people will still find their way to the guns. I still think that. But if you're a conservative out there, you certainly know how a lot of liberals don't understand guns. A lot of these liberals who say ban guns or ban assault rifles really can't quite define one. Because, well, an assault rifle, much like a chair, isn't quite a scientific thing. It's more of a thing that we've made up. Like an AR-15 isn't like an assault rifle, but like an AK-47 is a fucking assault rifle. You know what I mean? An AR-15 could still be considered an assault rifle, I guess, depending on who you ask. But their logic, for some of those liberals, not all of them, some liberals have a very well thought out reason as to why they think that AR-15s or assault rifles should be banned. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that position. Totally fine to have that position. But you as a conservative out there watching this, you get that. You know they don't understand it. It's like how a lot of boomers didn't understand the use of marijuana and they were scared of it because of the propaganda they grew up with. Or I guess Gen X a little bit too. But now we kind of just know that weed isn't that harmful. You know, we know that, so people don't give a fuck anymore. The understanding was then, I don't get it, ban it. It's a very common thing. Think about it with abortions. Men are much more likely to be opposed to abortions than women are, because of course they are. They don't understand it, so ban it. Men can never understand pregnancy, so their first thought is to, well, it's killing a kid, so ban it. Like, okay, you understand these things, you understand these concepts. You personally, whoever the fuck I'm talking to, you might understand abortions, you might understand guns, but maybe not everybody does understand those things. So their first inclination is to ban it. So when it comes to what a woman is, when it comes to the topic of gender, instead of just brushing off new information, maybe listen to it. If you have the opportunity to have a decent and real, genuine conversation with a trans person or somebody who's non-binary, talk to them. Don't do it in a way where you're going to try to sit there and try to poke holes at their little ideology, as you guys call it. Just really talk with them. Ask them questions like, what's it like to be trans? You know, how did you know that you were trans? Of course, like, don't just like randomly ask people this question. Like, ask them if you can have a discussion about that privately or out in public, whatever. But just tell them that you're like genuinely curious and that you don't know, you don't quite get it, and it's all very new to you. And as long as you go to these people with an open mind and you're not a dick, they probably are much more willing to talk to you than you would realize. I imagine they are. Now, you can still disagree with them in the end, but like, don't try to argue with them about their identity to them. Don't do that. Don't tell them that they're delusional and that you're actually a woman because you have or had at some point. I don't know if you've had surgery yet, but you definitely had a fucking pussy, so you're a woman. Don't do that. Just don't do it in a gay voice. But just don't do that. Be nice, and you might learn something. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. I will be talking about all things politics in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. If you want to debate me, I have a Discord server that you can join. If you join the Discord, just tell me, like, and you want to debate me, you can just, you can join there, and you can look at the different channels. I believe one of the channels specifically tells you how you can debate me. And then from there, we can have a discussion on either a live stream or a video. But I want to have real, honest discussions. I don't want to have a bunch of trolls coming into my my show and being dicks. But I do welcome that, because maybe you can teach me something that I don't know yet. So, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Hee-hoo. Oh, she's kicking herself. Want to say hi? There she is. I love her.